You're Locked On Wild. Your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, this is Brandon Duham, and this is Locked On Wild.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome into yet another Locked On Wild Live, as we have another game for you today. The Wild will be taking on the San Jose Sharks at 6 o'clock today. And, coming off of a game that was better, but still not enough against the St. Louis Blues, it really does feel like high time for whatever comes next, whether that be getting young players the opportunity to hop in and get some playing time, whether it be making trades before the trade deadline on March 8th. Feels like it's time for all of that to be expedited and to begin. So we'll talk about all that. We'll talk about the game. I'm going to periodically drop the link to join in the comments if anybody would like to hop in and ask a question for the group. If you want to put the questions in the comments too, if you have anything that you would like to be discussed on today's hangout, feel free to drop it in. I've got PWHL Minnesota on in the background, and we'll just hang out and have a good time. People may have noticed the lighting the last couple of episodes has been different. Working on that. I ordered a new desk that will be here on Wednesday. Until that happens, because I've got the two monitors, I am USB'd out. So just waiting until that comes in, then I can actually plug my my lights into the desk so that I'm not overloaded with USBs. Let's start with Redbone Radio. When is Murat going to be here? So obviously, when he signed his ELC, the paperwork immediately began about getting his work visa and getting him over here to get acclimated with the team. Latest update that I had heard when Bill Guerin talked about the whole thing was that they were hoping to get Murat here within a week of him signing his ELC. So hopefully by sometime this week, hopefully they can, the Wild can get him here to start the acclimation process has already started. Kuznetsov reaching out to the transition team, I think they're called, for the Minnesota Wild to get some materials so that he can start the transition process. So the hope is that sometime this week we'll get an update that he is on his way and then can be brought in quickly thereafter. Obviously, with the team having 23 players on the roster right now, there will need to be a roster move made to get him on the roster when he gets here. Depending on the status of Freddie Gaudreau and Marcus Johansson, if you IR one of those guys, then that's an easy way to get Kuznetsov on the roster when he's here. So there are kind of two little pieces to this, is getting him to America and then getting him on the roster. But I feel like, once the first is finished, then you can go to the second piece and you can get him here. Need to get my mic and cam squared away. It may be time for me to come on an episode here soon, Seth. Yeah, Mike, we're happy to have you whenever you would like to hop on. And we've had people that have joined from their phone. So there are a ton of different capabilities, and I was going to mention this before, but I do have the capability too. If anybody just wants to join via phone, like call in, I can get that rigged up to where that is an option too. So we have plenty of ways to get listeners on, and get you into the show, because I want to hear from more of you as this season unfolds. I know it might seem far-fetched, but should Hines be let go after this season? Clearly, this team's problems weren't coach related. Niles, this is a good question because we talked about it yesterday, and we talked about it yesterday in the postcast. Is John Hines the guy to lead this team, when everything is clicking, when you've got your full allotment or mostly full allotment of salary cap space? Is he the guy to lead the team? And it was amazing how many people were instant no's in that regard. And I think that's because for some of the in-game things that we've noted for John Hines that have gone well for him, in terms of making adjustments, line combinations, going away from having Freddie Gaudreau be your go-to center to going to Joel Eriksson Ek as it should be. For all that stuff, we still have a lot of the same things that that Dean was doing that we didn't like, with the fact that Marcus Johansson continues to play. He is almost an automatic insert into the second line. Freddie Gaudreau, same way. Like, you can make compelling arguments to take Freddie Gaudreau out of the lineup, and yet he continues to play because those coaches, those veteran-friendly coaches, just put trust in those guys. And like, they put trust in those guys above young players who can give you more. Like, you can't make a compelling case for Johansson or Gaudreau over Marco Rossi in the top six, and yet we continue to see it in the Johansson side. Like, I know Rossi has been up there a little bit more recently, but he was getting stretches where he was playing on the third line and was playing with fourth line guys. Like, it's a lot of the same things that Dean Evason was doing that John Hines is also doing on his watch. What are the odds Bill Guerin is still the GM when the cap issues finally go away? Boy, how cruel of a twist of fate would that be, to have Bill Guerin not make it through the Parise and Suter buyouts, which, again, that was something that was going to happen regardless of who the GM was. That was not a Bill Guerin specific. That was not like something that he specifically would have done. I'm pretty confident that whoever came in as general manager after Paul Fenton, pretty confident that they would have made the same moves, because the buyouts were always going to happen because of the cap recapture. Like, that was always going to be the case, so that you're not sitting and waiting. You're not waiting for one of them to come to you and say, "Hey, I'm retiring." Like, that was always going to be a cloud hanging over the final years of both Parise and Suter. But, you look at some of these other things that have happened on Bill Guerin's watch, and in particular, these extensions that just put this team completely, they box them in to this path that now you really have no choice but to continue down this road, because you have given all these players protections to where they can't they can't be moved unless they agree to it. And it's guys that you could get some good things for. But also, I think you don't sign those extensions before this season. You have a logical point to reassess where you're at. As this season continues to go sideways, you have a logical point to be able to just take a step back and say, okay, what is our best path forward? And it feels now like with those guys locked in, it feels like this is the path forward, unless you can get some of these guys to agree to move. Like there just is not a ton of flexibility with this roster over these next couple of seasons, when there should be. You should be setting up for a blank canvas once the cap hits for Parise and Suter drop back down. And if you play a ton of the young players, you give yourself an opportunity to see who can help you and who areas that you need to go out and find somebody to improve the roster. But now it's like, well, beyond getting rid of Brandon Duhaime, Connor Dewar, Pat Maroon, what else is going to change? We'll find out, but it doesn't feel as though there is going to be a ton that does here in the offseason. I don't trust John Hines because I don't trust Billy G. And this is the other part of the coin too, is that John Hines is a Bill Guerin guy. And so it wouldn't surprise me if, and we heard even as much, that the moment Dean Evison was fired, and even before that, Guerin putting a list together of, if I ever have to move on from Dean, I'm going to John Hines. Like that, John Hines, more so than Dean Evison was, John Hines is a Bill Guerin guy. And so that's kind of further down the list of the things that we take umbrage with, is the fact that all these things that have been done. Marcus Johansson, a Bill Guerin guy. Freddie Gaudreau came from the Pittsburgh Penguins organization where Bill Guerin was. Marc-Andre Fleury. And look, the Marc-Andre Fleury acquisition, I think, has gone mostly well. Obviously did not work great in that first postseason in which he was acquired, which is the reason that he was acquired. But he's been a good veteran guy on this team since he got here. And so I don't have a ton of issue with that one specifically, but Marc-Andre Fleury, again, is a Bill Guerin guy. Like, he has gone out a lot to go get his guys, and added them into a nice mix of youth, but a mix of youth that I think we would love to see a little bit more of. It's hard to buy into a lot of things with Bill Guerin after this season, starting with the offseason extensions. Hope he realizes that this was a misstep and it will take time to recover. It feels like all of those moves that he made were done very prematurely and rashly, and in response to, as fun as the 2021-2022 season was, it's not sustainable. That was not a sustainable model for this team to win. It was an outlier. But it feels like all of these extensions have come as a result of that season. Yeah, Marcus Foligno, good example there. 22 goals in 2021-2022. And Bill Guerin after that season said he's going to have to do it again. He didn't. He's still got an extension. The Matt Zuccarello extension, I really have zero problems with. He took a pay cut. I know he's on the older side, but he is still productive. But then you go and same thing with Ryan Hartman. He scored 35 goals. That was an outlier, and you reward him for it. Freddie Gaudreau, 2 seasons in which he was right around a 40-point guy, but playing with line mates that put him in a ton of opportunities to succeed. And that was probably an outlier. And you reward him with 5 years and trade protection against half the league. And the interesting one, because of his season last year, is Philip Gustafsson. You sign him to the 3-year extension because of the I think we can all agree that what we saw from Gustafsson last year was far and away above what he is really capable of. Now, he's mixed in great starts this season for sure, but he has been just every bit as inconsistent as the team in front of him has been. And now you're locked into that for the next 3 seasons. So Bill Guerin, I'm seeing it in the comments here. This is all Guerin's doing. And so he's going to need to figure out how to cultivate a little bit of this roster, because if you just use, hey, we were injured a ton. We had a ton of injuries. If you just use that going into next season, this could get real dicey. So there's going to need to be something done in the offseason to shake this group up. And I think we saw after the Blues game, I think the team understands that now there are going to be changes made, because the vibe was just completely dead after that loss to the Blues. And so feels like that was the sign that Guerin needed, that this is not a team that has postseason aspirations. And so now it's time to make some changes, and it is time to get some of the younger players, give them opportunities, get Adam Beckman up here and give him an opportunity to do more than just sit on the bench. Reports are the team doesn't want to trade Fleury. Is this a big mistake? What a difference 10 days makes, because we had the reports that Fleury does not want to go anywhere, that he is going down swinging for this. He's going down swinging with this group this season. And first and foremost, it is Marc-Andre Fleury's choice. He can veto any potential trade this season. And so if he does have a change of heart, and I hope Bill Guerin will ask after how the last couple of games have gone, if he has a change of heart, there are teams I think that would be calling about his services. You look at, the Carolina Hurricanes are a great example. The New Jersey Devils are on life support, but they had been linked to Fleury previously. There are teams that would have interest enough to where you'd be able to get something tangible in return for him. So I think 10 days ago, they were 2 points out. And so at that point, yeah, it makes sense for Fleury to say, I don't want to go anywhere. And now you're 10 points out, and it is pretty apparent that playoffs are not going to happen. And so maybe he does have a change of heart. But that's I think the key thing here for Marc-Andre Fleury is it's his choice. He gets to decide what happens. The Wilds can ask, the Wilds can suggest, the Wilds can be nice and say, hey, would you please accept a trade? But he doesn't have to. And that's where all of this trade protection ends up kind of biting you, is because when you get to a point where you could make a legitimate case for some changes, you give the players all the power. If you go to Freddie Gaudreau and say, hey, it's just not working out, we'd like to send you somewhere else, he doesn't have to say yes at all. He can say, I like it here. I'm good. I'm not gonna waive. And so, like, all the trades aside, because Mike brings up a good one, and this may be one of the biggest heists that he has performed, is getting a second round pick for Jordan Greenway, as PWHL Minnesota just scored to open the scoring in the second period. It is 1-0. Nice feed out in front. Just a tap-in goal. And PWHL Minnesota takes a 1-0 lead. He's done really well with the trades, but those extensions all should be evaluated quite a bit as we go. Kaprizov should leave if he's smart. Playing on a team with Gaudreau, Foligno, etc., his prime is going to be wasted. Here's my take on the Kaprizov situation. I am not concerned. I'm not concerned about him re-signing. I would put it at good odds that he does. It's what happens if 1 or 2 years into his extension, if this team hasn't done anything legitimate. What happens if he goes to management and says, I'm out? I don't want to be here. Like, that's the thing. That's the thing that I worry about, is the situation souring quickly, because, by all accounts, loves it here. He is beyond intrigued by what we're going to see from Kuznetsov, Yurov, and Ugrin. And so I think those are good reasons for him to stay. Obviously, he could have a much better chance to win elsewhere on one of the coasts. But I don't know. I don't feel like you look at the Elias Pettersson extension that he just signed. RIP to that dream, which was a dream for about 3 minutes. And then it's gone. But 8 years there, and his AAV is, I believe, around $11.5 million. That's a pretty solid framework for a Kaprizov extension, because I think, based off the fact that he's a center, I think you can make the case that Pettersson is worth more money. And so are the Wilds going to really overpay and try to go 12 or 13? I hope not. But that's going to be the framework, I think. So the thing that I'm worried more about is him souring after signing, as opposed to not re-upping here at all. And Paul Theophanos is going to play a role in this. I am sure of that. He's going to play a role. And if you thought it was a pain to try to get Kaprizov re-signed for his bridge deal, just wait. Just wait until Paul Theophanos gets his hands on that contract. Yikes. All right, I just about spilled my water. That would not have been good. I believe the no movement clauses on Hartman and Foligno's contracts were only for this year. The no move on Johansson was a mistake. Do you think he'll be bought out in the offseason? I will just take a look, because I know they were added. I know they were added to their current contract before they signed. And so let's just see here. So for Hartman, he has a no-move clause negotiated for the 2023-2024 season as part of his 3-year extension. Let me just look at the contract specifically. So he has a no-move clause for 2024-2025 and a modified no trade for 2025-2026 and 2026-2027. For those seasons, for 2025-2026, Hartman submits a 15-team no-trade list. For 2026-2027, it's a 10-team no-trade list. So that's Hartman's contract. For Marcus Foligno, his deal, he had the no move added to this year as part of the extension he signed in September. For Foligno, it is a no move in years 1 and 2. In years 3 and 4, it is a modified no trade clause. He submits a 15-team no trade list. So there are a lot of no moves specifically that are in play here over the next couple of seasons. I'll also indulge cap friendly by looking at what it would cost to buy out Marcus Johansson. A Marcus Johansson buyout spans 2 years, has a cost of $1.333 million and a savings of $667K. Johansson is 33 years of age at the time of the buyout. Therefore, the buyout ratio is 2/3. With $2 million in salary remaining, the cost is $1.33 million, and the savings are $667K. Buyout span twice the length of the remaining years, and because there is 1 year remaining on the contract, the buyout length is 2 years. The buyout cap hit is displayed in the cap hit allegations calculations. So the cap hit, if you buy Johansson out for the second year of his deal, the cap hit would be $667K for 2024, 2025, and 2025, 2026. It is not a hefty price. And so I'd be fine with that. It's not a hefty price. Denny, you got bumped for Brother Joe yesterday? That is that's not what we want to hear. Only a Minnesota team hands out extensions to a core that has had zero playoff success in multiple chances. This is the thing that I think is why I have kind of, PWHL Minnesota scored again, 2-0. This is an angle that I have kind of gone with myself, is that was the other part of all of this. It would be one thing. It'd be one thing if we were the Tampa Bay Lightning, if this was Locked On Tampa Bay Lightning, and you're looking at locking in Stamkos, Kucherov, because those guys have won. It's one thing for the Colorado Avalanche to lock in their core because they have won. This franchise is in the midst of, I think it's 7 straight postseason series losses. So that's all they know. And yes, you can bring in guys like Pat Maroon to try help with that. But the other guys are still there. And I'm sorry, but in the postseason is all about players stepping up, and you either do or you don't. There is no with young players, sure, you can kind of step into a key postseason contributor, but you either do or you don't. You either rise to that moment or you don't. And that's not something that can be taught. That's not something that can be coached. That's something that is just there. And we've seen it with this team. We've seen the moment they get even a sliver of postseason success, they take their foot off the throat. They've done it 2 straight years. Take their foot off the throat, and they allow the opponent even a breath of space to be able to make the comeback and And yeah, like I would just much rather have waited, reassessed after this season, and Bill Guerin's comments about I would much rather have Marcus Foligno on my team than not. Like, I would much rather this team have the mindset of let's get as much skill as we can. We can add the physical guys. You can add those. You can find those at the trade deadline or in free agency. But what you can't find is a top 6 skill guy that you can throw into the mix. Those are the things that teams are always chasing. And so go get those guys first, build that core instead of your core being like those complementary guys that you look to add to your key parts of the roster. It's premature, and should have just waited until after the season to make those moves. Need to stop worrying about Freddie. $2 million isn't going to kill a team, whether on the fourth line or a press box. No, but 5 years will. $2.1 million has never been the issue with Freddie Gaudreau. Never been the issue. That's the going rate for a third or a fourth line guy. And that number is going to continue to rise as the salary cap goes up. AAV has never been the problem. The problem has been that you are pretty locked in to this for 5 years. And look, if Gaudreau is hurt, I will walk everything that I have said back. If it turns out he has a legitimate injury that has hampered him this season, I'm willing to own up to being wrong. But if not, then you gave a 5-year extension to a guy, and we saw the best that he has to offer. And the odds of being able to repeat that are pretty slim. So that's the thing. That's the thing about this is it has never been about the AAV with Gaudreau. It's been the years, and that's really it's been the years and the trade protection. That's the biggest part of all of this. I'll put it at about a 99.99% on the Dewey's leaving. And I think you saw that after the game. Duhaime's interview with Gorg after the game. I think he knew. I think the whole team knows that those 2 games against Nashville and St. Louis, they had to have both, and they couldn't get either of them. And so I think they both will go. Honestly, just because he's a Florida guy, I think you could make a case for Duhaime for either the Panthers or the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think both would welcome that. Adding a guy to that mix, I think would be a great fit. And Connor Dewar, I mean, same thing. Fourth line guy who can play penalty kill, who brings a lot of speed, can win faceoffs. There will be teams that will be inquiring on both guys. So it will not shock me at all if both go. You weren't going to sign either of them after the season. And so it makes sense to be able to get something for them before they're gone. So that would be the hope, at least. I believe Wild management had handshake deals with multiple players. They were made to get through the buyouts' toughest years. Personally, I would have preferred to see the team step back and reload. Keith, I'm right with you. This is the Alex Goligoski deal. Is exactly how this went down. Because if you remember back to when Goligoski, and look, Goligoski's first year here, he was good. He had a great season. He had like 30 some points with the Wild his first season, but that was part of why he came here and why he was willing to sign a 1-year deal, was with the assumption that he then would get another contract to finish out his career once that deal was done. He had 30 points in 72 games in 2021-2022, and he was a plus 41 on the season. So it's not like Goligoski was not a good player. Like, he's been good. He's like 39. And at some point you can't ask those types of players to play on a daily basis. Like, if you want to have him as a 7th defenseman to fill in occasionally, sure. But you can't ask those guys to play on a nightly basis, or it just takes them longer to recover. I bet they said if we just fix the PK, we got a better chance. This is honestly, like, that was one of the things that I think drove me most nuts about that end of season presser at the end of last season, where it's like, hey, we made all these different cosmetic changes to the penalty kill. Ultimately, it's on the players to step up their performance. But here's the other thing: like, we should be spending less and less time asking why the penalty kill is bad, and more time asking why this team simply can't stay out of the box. 4th most penalized team in the NHL. And look, fighting and those types of things are a completely different category. But what did the Wild have against the Blues? 4 tripping penalties? It like, you just have had undisciplined play pretty much all season. And it's easy. If you're Pete DeBoer, if you're Rick Bowness, if you were Craig Berube, but I guess still are Craig Berube, you know the drill. You just get the Wild to commit penalties and you capitalize on it. And so instead of, like, if you have a car that has a bad engine, instead of fixing everything else, why not just fix the engine? Why not fix the crux of the problem, which is that this team is just atrociously undisciplined. And until that changes, this is just going to continue, because it's not necessarily, we've seen the penalty kill this year put good stretches together. It's overexposure is why this penalty kill is as bad as it is, because it continues to get exposed, because you've got nights where you go to the box 7 times, and against a team that does not have a great power play. St. Louis Blues aren't particularly good on the power play. But how many times have we seen against the Edmonton Oilers, for instance, where they score like 6 seconds into the power play? Or how about the Dallas Stars? It's during the regular season, you can kind of lull yourself into thinking you're okay, but then you go up against those upper echelon teams and you just get walked. It's all about why does this team continue to parade to the penalty box? Like, once that gets figured out, then I think the penalty kill will be fine. Moose is a good 4th line enforcer. He just has too big of a role on this team. This is another thing is because this team does not have two full like scoring lines, skill lines. You are playing players, and that third line is just kind of that third line has been just a turnstile for a large majority of the season. And so yeah, you're playing players a little bit above what they would normally do. If the Wild can get guys slotted in to where they're much more like, just think about where these guys would be on a playoff team. Marcus Foligno's a fourth line guy. Ryan Hartman's probably a fourth line guy. Freddie Gaudreau's a fourth line guy. Like, once you get some more depth, and maybe the kids can help with that. Who's Nadinov, Yurov, Adam Beckman. Some of those players that can slot into the lineup to where everybody just gets put more in their natural spot, then that's where things start to look considerably better. Yeah, if we find out Freddie is hurt, if we find out he's been dealing with substantial injury this year, I'll give that a pass, because he, like, as much as I needle and poke and prod, he was still part of those two lines over the last two seasons that did pretty good down the stretch. And so and even last year was kind of bouncing around the lineup and managed to score 19 goals. So if he is hurt, then yeah, we'll see if things go better here next season. Why is this team terrible against Central Division teams almost exclusively? It seems insane to me how bad the Wild played against teams in their own division. There are a few things that have led to the Central being able to dominate the Wild. Center depth, for one. And I think because those teams play the Wilds more frequently, they know what the book is. Dallas knows what the book is. Winnipeg knows what the book is. Get the Wild frustrated, get them on the penalty kill, score special teams goals. It's that simple. And you play these teams that don't, East Coast teams, for instance, especially. East Coast teams are not big and bulky. Nashville, big and bulky. St. Louis is big and bulky. They know what it takes to get this team off its game, and they do so quite well. Better chance happening: Addison hat trick or Kähkönen getting the shutout. This is a good one, because let's just look at this, because I was told by Locked On Sharks that Capo has actually been playing relatively well, especially lately. So let me just take a peek at his numbers. Oh, Capo has lost his last. He must have been being facetious with me. Capo Kähkönen has one win since December 7th as netminder for the Sharks. One win in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 appearances. Now, a few of those have been in relief, although he did give up 7 goals to the New Jersey Devils. He's given up 12 goals in his last 2 appearances. including 5 goals allowed against the Anaheim Ducks on Thursday. Oh, that's not great. His numbers for February even 0-5. He's given up 20 goals in 4 starts, 5 appearances. His save percentage is .885. Yikes. Just gross. Yeah, essentially Goose wanted 3 years at $3 million per, had a handshake deal for $5 million for 1 year and $2 million for 2 years after that to better work through the cap hell. Yeah, that's exactly how that played out. You see it in sports. And yeah. Team is slower than most other teams, not as skilled, easy to rack up tripping calls and penalties. And yeah, that's a majority of the penalties that this team is called for. Holding, tripping, hooking, all those like pursuit type penalties. And to be fair, there have been some that have been mixed in. Like, I still don't understand what Jonas Brodin is supposed to do when a guy is holding his stick under his arm and like not letting it go. Like, what are you supposed to do in that instance as a player? So there have been some that are, bad calls, but by and large, it's pretty expected considering kind of what this team is. With GMBG working on Olympic stuff, that would be a great out and move on to bigger things from him and better things for us. This is interesting because this stems back to Denny's comments that Guerin and staff need to be shown the door. There is one problem, I think, that is preventing this at this point, and that is the owner's box. Craig Leopold likes Bill Guerin. And so if Craig Leopold was willing to buy out Zach Parise and Ryan Suter because Bill Guerin talked him into it. Bill Guerin obviously was able to get Leopold to go along with the extensions because Bill Guerin convinced him it was a good idea. Firing Dean Evison. Bill Guerin convinced Craig Leopold that was a good idea. So Leopold trusts Guerin, but you have a season in which you don't make the playoffs. You have all the other stuff that has happened this season. And so all of a sudden you go from like invincible with a massive extension set to kick in on July 1st. All of a sudden you go from invincible, not going anywhere, to, if this is another season in which this team doesn't make the postseason, maybe. But then we got to keep in mind as well is that this team operating under cap constraints, Leopold is going to, within reason, Leopold is going to give Guerin the benefit of the doubt. But make no mistake that this is a lot of Bill Guerin's doing. Where this team's currently at, the fact that they're on the old side and are mostly slow, it's by and large his doing. So it took the league 2 games to scheme the Wild's first line off the score sheet. League coaches are just too talented to run a single offensive line. Yeah, that's the MO against this team. The San Jose Sharks are going to try to do the exact same thing today. Keep Kaprizov, Eriksson Ek, and Boldy off the score sheet, and you stand a good chance to beat the Minnesota Wild. And this is why, like, There have been people that have asked lately, like, sorry, something fell off of my other desk and I wasn't sure exactly what it was. I've seen this comments lately, people wondering, like, why is it so easy for teams to scheme? Why is it so easy for teams to shut down that top line? Well, because they're throwing all the attention, especially on the road. When you get last change, they're throwing every bit of attention at Kaprizov, Boldy, and Eriksson Ek. And if you're a team like Winnipeg or a team like Dallas, if you've got a line that can play some good defense, or your number one defenseman, it's the same thing that we do to the Edmonton Oilers with Jonas Brodin. They're throwing their best defense out there to keep that line in check and to limit their opportunities, and saying, you got to beat us with your other three lines. And the Wilds have not been able to do that consistently here. Do we see Guerin staying as president of hockey operations and Judd Brackett becoming GM at some point? This would be, so here's a scenario in which this could play out, is if teams tried to poach Judd Brackett for, like, you see this in the NFL all the time, where teams will try to poach a defensive coordinator to be a head coach somewhere. And so the team that's trying to keep the particular assistant will elevate them to, like, assistant head coach or something along those lines, to where they get what they're looking for to stay. It wouldn't surprise me, because Bill Guerin has that president title, it would not surprise me if at some point he takes just that and goes to president and brings somebody else in to be general manager. When? That's anybody's guess, but it wouldn't surprise me if he just goes to that role, because I don't remember exactly when this was, but he did a radio hit with Dan Barreiro. And Barreiro basically specifically asked him, like, is this your last hockey gig? And he said, yeah, I would like it to be. So, maybe once he is ready to relinquish GM duties, or if some team says, hey, Brackett, we'll make you our general manager, then maybe they do that as a way to just keep, because Brackett has been the guru behind all of the drafting. Although, to be honest, I'm thinking Charlie Stramel was a Bill Guerin pick. But beyond that, he has mostly had free reign to pick who he thinks is going to be the best fit for this team. And so if you don't want to lose that, you got to give him a reason to stay. Kähkönen's numbers are worse. 6-19-2 with a 3.68 goals against average and an 898 save percentage, and he's going in the wrong direction here in Feb. Trade Capo Pries. I'm going to need to get like a name tag that I can wear that says Trade Capriz. Yeah, this is the other part of it, is all of the penalties that happen in the offensive zone. Like, there are just so many, just hideous. It's trying to, yeah, old desk. I was one of those people that had the corner, like the L desk, and it doesn't work for moving around and doing the show. And so I went to just a flat desk. I'm actually using my dining room table as my desk right now, but went and finally got the upgrade to an actual desk that has a ledge on the back of it that will allow me to kind of center my two monitors a bit. So yeah, I just have my living room is a disaster right now. Thankfully, it's not really on display. So, it's a mess, but we'll get it cleaned up. We'll get it ironed out. Presentation is mostly good right now, but I'm still working on adding a few things to that. Also, we are going to have to get a documentary as to how Darby Hendrickson has managed to just keep rolling. I don't get it. Like, it's he just has gone through, he's on his third coaching staff? Fourth? Going to the game on the 14th, praying to God Murat is in the lineup. I would think the 14th would be a good target for Murat because, and when this team was a playoff team, they needed to get him worked in before the trade deadline. Now that doesn't matter. Like, they have him signed, so that's the key piece to this, is that Murat is signed, and so now when he gets here, he can be added to the roster, no problem. I would think the 14th, that's 11 days out, and so if Murat, let's just look at the calendar here. So if Murat is able to get to the States, is able to get to America by maybe by the 9th. You got a few days for practice. And then I say just throw him in. Just see what he's got. Give him an opportunity. Let's get back to Evgeny Kuznetsov, who was waived by the Washington Capitals. Freddie, I'll paint the picture this way as I pull up his numbers and everything else. Kuznetsov is 31 right now, and I would say no to a waiver claim because he's on the old side. I mean, to be fair, in that instance, he would fit right in with this Minnesota Wild team, but he's got 17 points in 43 games. He's got 6 goals. I just don't think he brings you anything that you couldn't already get from a prospect, from a young player. And this is the key piece. This is the piece that we need to be asking about these guys going forward is, does this particular player offer you more than what a prospect would? If the answer is no, if you're being honest with yourself and the answer is no, play the prospect. And look, there are going to be guys. Obviously, you're not going to take when Marcus Foligno is ready to return, although the fact that he saw a specialist in St. Louis, that doesn't sound good. The Wild are saying that there was some good news on that front, but anytime you go see a specialist, usually not a good thing. But when Foligno's ready to return, he's going to play. Like, that part is not he's not going to be taken out of the lineup. What happens with Freddie Gaudreau and Marcus Johansson, depending on the severity of their injuries? No morning skate today. I was kind of going through to see if there was any news potentially, but no morning skate. And so, oh boy, are we going to get dueling 11-7s today? Sharks are going with an 11-7 lineup. Ick. But yeah, the question that needs to be asked. Darby knocked the stuff off Seth's other desk. The question that need to be asked is this player giving you more or something that a rookie can't provide? That's the question going forward. I just like to know what the executives see that fans don't see at times like this. Now, there are a lot of questions on this subject. Like, are you showcasing guys to try to be able to find a buyer? I don't think it was coincidence that in Michael Russo's trade pieces article, he had Freddie Gaudreau listed as would trade if any other team was interested. So maybe it is as simple as they're trying to showcase these guys to find a buyer, because this is another piece about Bill Guerin is he has a lot of stuff cooking behind the scenes that does not make the front screen radar. Trading Capo Kähkönen for Jake Middleton. Did not hear a word about that possibility until the day it happened. Trading for Pat Maroon. Did not hear a word about that until the day it happened. And so we have all these things that we feel are logical for trade pieces. There will be one that nobody has put together yet that happens. So we'll have to we get bad contracts off the books only to offer more bad contracts. Yeah, thank you, Trav. It's going to happen. Like, let's be perfectly clear here. It will happen today if the Wild beat the Sharks. It's crazy that I'm even saying if, but honestly, like, I can visualize a pretty accurate scenario in which they do lose, because deflating loss last night, and you give a Sharks team even a sliver of, because let's look at this. San Jose Sharks took the Dallas Stars to a shootout last night. So they are probably feeling pretty optimistic about the fact of, oh my God, we actually were able to stick with the San Jose Sharks, or with the Dallas Stars. There's a pretty easy scenario in which the San Jose Sharks win this game, because look at some of their other games against what you would consider top teams. Second game of the season, they took the Colorado Avalanche to a shootout. They beat, granted, this was back in November, they beat the Philadelphia Flyers and the Edmonton Oilers in consecutive games. They beat the St. Louis Blues 5-1. They beat Vancouver 4-3 in November. They beat the Winnipeg Jets 2-1. The losses have been far more frequent since, but on back-to-back nights, they beat the Los Angeles Kings 4-3 in a shootout, and they beat the New York Rangers in overtime. Their most recent win, which was February 15th, was against the Calgary Flames. If you give young teams even a sliver of hope, they will take advantage. We're not trading Joel Eriksson Ek. Despite what Vancouver may want to and this is a funny thing too about those Vancouver trade rumors, was that they were saying we would get Joel Eriksson Ek and he would be at best a third line center for us. It's like, okay, it's not happening. Joel Eriksson Ek is indispensable and untouchable. And I know a GM offers something crazy for Joel Eriksson Ek. Like you'll always at least answer the call, but I don't see any scenarios in which Joel Eriksson Ek ever gets traded at any point for any reason at all. Yeah, we're not even gonna entertain that. This is good call, Cinerary. He's a 1B center, not a superstar center, but he's ascending to that level with his performance here this season. He's been sensational all year. All right, let's get to predictions. Wild are minus 340 today. Are you betting that? Let me consult my friends here at FanDuel, because I may not take the Wild specifically, but I'll find you a good one for tonight's game. The anytime goal scorers. Geez, they're all Minnesota Wild players on the leaderboard. You know what I am going to do? Everybody's going to laugh at this. I'm going to take Mikael Granlund plus 350 to score a goal today. So if he does, feeling great. Ooh, this is a good question too. Let me just look here. I feel like it'll be Gus, but zero updates from the Wild today because of no morning skate. So I think it'll just be Gus. But at this point, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't. I'm just still bummed that we didn't get our goalie fight in last night's game, that we didn't get the Fleury Binnington. Maybe next time. Maybe. Okay, so predictions for today's game. 6-2 Sharks. 5-3 Wilds. 3-2 Wild win. Gus lets in a couple 3-4 softies in that 6-2 prediction. Wild win 6-2. Rossi with at least one goal today. He's been playing well and shooting the puck. Feel like he's going to be rewarded tonight. I would love to see that, because Rossi is as great or good as it gets. Logged himself a nice 17 minutes against the St. Louis Blues. I just would love to see him get, like, he's got 17 goals. I just want to see him get to 20 at the least. He's on pace for 23 right now. I'd love to see him be a 20-goal, 50-point guy in what is his rookie season. I just think that would be great for his process, and it just is another young piece that you can say, okay, we can add this into our mix for the next couple of seasons. 4-3 win in overtime for the Minnesota Wilds. And we're all back, all back. Sharks win 3-2. Toledo wins 6-2. Whatever the Iowa Wild play, 7-4 with the Iowa Wild 4 in the late third period. Like that prediction. Wild are winning this 5-4. Marco needs a game like this to pot a couple of points. 0 points in the last 5+ games would be wonderful to see him get on the score sheet. Brandon Duhaime with a hattie today to boost his trade value. Yeah, let's get that. Trade package that's Tanner Jeannot fetched from Nashville. Send him to the Panthers or something. 4-2 San Jose Sharks. Someone is missing in the third because they got traded. Yeah, if we see, I'll be on Hug Watch today to see if anybody gets moved. I would imagine here's the timeline. The Wild play today, and they don't play then again until Thursday. So if you're going to make some moves, it's going to happen tomorrow, probably. Tomorrow, Tuesday, or Wednesday, because then you play at Arizona Thursday and at Colorado on Friday. And so you want to give the team an opportunity to come to grips with what they have caused by their play. So make the trades, free up some spots. The bottom 6 is a mess with clutter and confusion. So free up some spots and make something happen. Make a move. Make a move, Billy Gambles. Do something. All right, folks, I think that is going to wrap it up here for today. I will say, please just bear with me. We're going to try to get a legitimate town hall feel to these shows. Just I'm in the fight of my life with day job currently. I think I am on the road every single day this week, other than Wednesday. So what I would ideally like these shows to be is somebody else is here. We have questions from all of you listeners that we answer and turn it into more of a forum feel. And so when I get through this part of my day job schedule, that's going to free up a lot of my time to be able to keep churning shows out here. So that's ultimately where I would like to take these, but appreciate everybody hanging out, and we will have you covered for today's game against the San Jose Sharks as well. Make sure to hit the like button as you head out here for the day. Any trades need to include Merrill even as a freebie. Yeah, it's like when you buy X amount of something and they say, well, we'll give you this as a freebie too. We'll include slightly used John Merrill as a throw-in for the trades. So hit that like button on your way out. Make sure to subscribe if you have not already, and make sure to stick with us through today's game against the San Jose Sharks. Hopefully we see something fun, I guess, but ultimately it's another game for this Minnesota Wild team. So Locked on Wild has you covered. Make sure to stick with us through the rest of the week. We've got new episodes for you every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.